what I want to discuss is actually kind of funny because it's Truth said it multiple times throughout her meditation. But what I want to discuss is the concept of the soul, our purpose, and intuition. So, first off, when we talk about the soul, it can be called, so many different things: life force, energy, divine spark, chi, higher self, and all of these to name that source energy within all of us and that divine aspect of each of us. And however you want to define that divinity, god, goddess, universe, just depends on what term you're really comfortable with. Spirit, infinite intelligence. Our souls are energetic extensions of that energy. Now, when we talk about our soul's purpose, it's so nuanced. And what Spirit has communicated to me is there is a core purpose which is the same for all of us, and that is to connect with and express our soul or higher self in every aspect of our lives. Not only with the special people in our lives, but also the people we interact with in our day to day lives, even how we treat ourselves and the planet. And trust me, I know that is easier in theory than in practice. At this point, it's been half my life that I have devoted to, being a channel for spirit and living my life intuitively. And I still can have trouble with that in my day-to-day life just because I'm still human. So I still have this mind and ego like everyone else. For me personally, it's like time frames. I like things to be on my time schedule, and I understand that's not always plausible, but that's just when I have to kind of get out of that mind and ego of, get back into my higher self of knowing that when things are energetically aligned, things will work through. But like I said, though, that is our core purpose, and how each of us expresses our divinity varies person to person, based on our life experiences and circumstances. And the way I like to explain it is, if you imagine knowing that like everything that is in disharmony within the world and having a desire to bring it into harmony, that is your soul as an extension of spirit, aware of the disharmony and working to fix that. And to do so, your soul uses your circumstances and life experiences to kind of focus how you can best express your light in an effort to cultivate that harmony. For me, like this, just in my daily life, but also within like work. Because like also when we talk about purpose, many equate it to like a singular aspect of their life or a grand achievement, like being a parent or some aspect of their career, or the societal impact they have on society, which is not the case because it's so intertwined. And like I said, it's sharing that in every aspect of our lives. And when we also talk about purpose, or like purpose, there's another word, but when we talk about purpose, there are so many people who believe that like people who do horrible things, or the horrible things that happen, terrorist attacks, murderers, rapists, etc., those who may lack emotional intelligence or empathy, or those who just overall don't seem like good people, are actually less evolved souls whose purpose it is to, evolve their own soul, but also be lessons to others to evolve. And that is just from my experience. I don't agree with that theory. And I understand the reason people attribute like horrible events or traumatic events to divine order for us to grow is so those events mean something, but rather than just being something that, horrible that happened. But what spirits communicated to me regarding, the type of people that I mentioned and like the events that transpire because of that, is they're not serving a divine plan, but are actually so disconnected from their higher self that they're acting completely from ego, therefore putting us more into disharmony rather than trying to cultivate harmony or having a divine plan for it. And we can definitely take those experiences as lessons for what happens when we listen to our ego and our fear instead of our intuitive wisdom of connection and unity. But for me personally, I don't view that, and I haven't seen it within my work, as divinely orchestrated. It's more, like I said, that they're so in disharmony or out of balance with their own inner guidance and their higher self, that they're creating more disharmony, globally. um, and I know all of the like expressing our soul sounds great, but how do we connect to our soul and intuitive wisdom and express our higher self? While in my experience, I've seen intuitive or intuition and psychic awareness like interchanged. But again, I say from my experience of what spirit has communicated to me, because I can only go on that in my experience. But what they've kind of communicated to me is mediumship, psychic awareness, and intuition are three separate things. To where mediumship is, having direct communication with spirits and delivering their messages on behalf of someone or for someone else. Whereas psychic awareness is being able to tap into that soul of the living person to help them align with their higher self and understand their intuition to help them navigate their life. Whereas intuition is the energetic language our souls use to communicate with our conscious minds. And it's always focused on ourselves, our alignment with the universal energy, our path, our relationships to people and events, even connecting to our own spirit loved ones. And that's one thing I say is, like, even to my clients, like, no one has a stronger connection or no one has a better link to your spirit loved ones than you. There are times when that may be off because of where you are in your life. So you're kind of disconnected. So you need that kind of validation, which is when you go see a medium type of thing. But everyone has the capability to align with their higher self and be intuitive to empower them in their lives and recognize their spirit loved ones. And again, that all sounds great, but I haven't really given any like how to. And it's really about distinguishing intuitive wisdom and your higher self from your ego and mental chatter. And for self-awareness and development is where I always recommend starting, and understanding your mindset, how you feel, your traumas, understanding your psychology. And if you need to, get a therapist to help work through that trauma or unhealthy patterns, get a therapist, because I understand the importance of mind, body, soul harmony. And spirituality isn't meant to take the place of mental health professionals. And that's actually a disclaimer I have within my work is I'm not a mental or medical professional. um, you know and I have had clients that when they come to me, they're at that point where that's what they need, and maybe years of therapy didn't help them in the way that did. And then I've had other clients where their spirits were recommending they seek therapy because, like, what we were talking about is like the core or the root cause of what they're needing guidance on or what they're needing healing with, but they may need the right tools and the accountability that comes with therapy to actually do the work and heal and change those mindsets. And a lot of people, especially at the beginning of their journey, I've seen a lot of people that are like discount like mental health therapy or profession because they're like, oh, my spirituality can help with that. And like I said, there is an importance between mind, body, and soul harmony. And I've known people that deal with depression and anxiety, and what helps them get to their therapy sessions to get that the tools that they need to cope and go through life with those mental illnesses is their rituals or their spirituality gets them there. And I'd also say, to foster a connection with your higher self, practicing various forms of meditation, initially with the intent. And with meditation, I would always recommend having an intention rather than just saying, I'm going to sit in meditation and kind of whatever happens, happens, because that's when your mind chatter can really get involved, where you sit there initially with that intention of just not even getting any guidance in that moment, but just connecting with that inner guidance, that higher self, that soul, and getting aware of how it feels and the experience you have when you're connecting to that, so that you can differentiate it between the mental chatter coming through at other points. And it's also being able to take that like sense, even if you're not getting any guidance or anything profound happening in those initial meditations, you take that energy of this is what my soul feel likes, and then you can recognize it through your day to day when your intuition does pop up. And I also recommend like doing things that bring you joy and the things that you're passionate about, whether that's painting, dancing, going for runs, or any other physical activity, and spending time with, your friends and family, things that you bring you joy in life. And journaling is a great one for the introspective work and recognizing your intuition, because you'll notice that, the mindsets that you have that you didn't really recognize until you saw them on the paper. And by fostering that connection with your soul, you're going to familiarize yourself with what it feels like and how your mentality is when you're aligned with your higher self, which again helps distinguish between your intuition and mental chatter. And one thing I've seen is where many practitioners say one way to distinguish between your intuitive wisdom and your mental chatter is your intuition will always be the first thought, and it will feel familiar because it's coming from within, whereas your ego is a thought or mentality you've adopted from someone else, or maybe even due to mental illness. And to that, I would always say only once you've really cultivated a relationship with your higher self will it feel familiar. Because what I've seen many times is people are so comfortable and used to the mindset they've had, the ego that they've listened to, that has kind of thrown them into disharmony, that when they start to recognize their intuition, it feels foreign or odd to them because they're so used to that mental chatter. So when they actually start to pay attention, yeah, like I said, it feels odd and foreign. And I'll also say that it's even after years of self development, it may not always be your first impression. And after I've like I said, I've spent at this point more than half my life cultivating a relationship with my higher self. My intuition does feel familiar to me, but it's still not always my first impression, which is okay because I can at least recognize that because I understand that familiarity. And one example is actually from earlier this year, and I had got a message from a guy I was, let's say, more than friends with, but not exactly a relationship for a while. And it did not end well. And just stopped talking to me 5 years ago and just kind of threw me mentally and emotionally. And seeing his name pop up on my phone made my heart instantly race with anxiety. And in his message, he apologized for saying, I was a good person and I didn't deserve how he treated me. And he understood if I didn't want to respond, but wanted me to know he had thought about me throughout the years and just wanted to apologize. And my first thought was, nah, absolutely not. He's very manipulative. I don't know what he's trying to do, but I want no part in this. But after, but I could recognize that being hesitation due to our history, and I could recognize that being an emotional trigger. So being me, I took a moment, a couple moments to kind of shake off like that trigger and tap in intuitively, and specifically focusing on the energy between us, and how we both were in this time of our life. And to my surprise, it felt genuine. And the guidance that came with that was it is genuine, and you like respond. There is going to be some healing. And so I did, and we talked a few things out. And now 6 months later, we're friendly and chat every now and then, but it's not like we're super close. But by following that intuitive wisdom, by one, first recognizing that it was a trigger that I had, and then going within and following that intuitive wisdom, there was a sense of closure that was kind of like I had done all my healing with it, and this was just kind of like the cherry on top that kind of wrapped it up for me. And there's this is another example of this is one I use frequently because it's just gives tools within the example. But I deal with test anxiety. I deal with anxiety in general. But so 10 years ago, when I was in college, I woke up one morning and I woke up just insanely anxious. But because at that point I had already been done a lot of self work and recognized that it was my test anxiety that I would feel, I kind of thought about it and was like, there's no test I have today. I don't have a test. So I sat up in bed and I was like, all right, whatever. Again, closed my eyes. And for this, I visualized each of my classes. So I went through like the first three classes, and none of the images evoked anything from me, as well as each of them just shattered as if someone threw like a rock through a window. By the time I got to my last class, my my anxiety went like through the roof, and like the image stuck, and it was like my eyes pulsating, and I was like, all right, well, clear, like I don't have a test in there, but I'll read the next few chapters. And I went in that night, and I asked like five people, like, is there a test? Like, what did he say the test was going to be about? Like, I don't. And all of them said, we don't have a test. There's one next week, but we don't have anything for this lecture. It's just a lecture. And I said, okay, well, at least I got reading done, I guess. And cut to my instructor coming in, saying, take out a piece of paper, puts a sheet on the overhead, and says, here's your quiz. Give me your quizzes at the end, and after you're done, and you can go. And three of those people were like, what, you witch. But that was like bringing in multiple senses too, like bringing in my feelings and understanding what my anxieties were and realizing my triggers, but also bringing that visualization to see kind of what stuck. And that's personally a symbolic way of working for me with my intuition, that I've recognized that works. But yeah. And many people, especially when I talk about those things, those two examples, many people want to fast track their self development and spiritual development, thinking it's going to be like super easy, and right at the start they're going to recognize their intuition versus their mental chatter. And that's where you get people saying, sometimes my intuition is spot on, and then other times it's just dead wrong. When you think your intuition was wrong, that's when you go back and sit with every aspect of that experience, so that you can recognize when it happens again, knowing it's your ego rather than your higher self. Doing the same when you accurately recognize your intuition, going back to understand that experience as a whole, so you can again recognize, okay, this is what it was like when I was in alignment and my intuition and higher self were there. um so yeah, that is the surprisingly condensed synopsis of where I'm at in my understanding and communication with spirit of our purpose, and just like a few tips of fostering that connection to your higher self, which then allows you to open up and become aware of your own spirit loved ones around you.